with the New Jersey Safe Schools program at the Rutgers School of Public Health in New Jersey and a member of ASHA for the past 2 years. The American School Health Association, or ASHA, is a multidisciplinary organization. The mission of ASHA is to transform all schools into places where every student learns and thrives. ASHA envisions healthy students who learn and achieve in safe and healthy environments, nurtured by caring adults, functioning within coordinated school and community support systems. Being a member of ASHA for the past 2 years, I have been able to network with other school health professionals and volunteer as part of the Professional Development Committee. In addition, there are a number of other ASHA membership benefits. First is the Journal of School Health, or JOSH. JOSH is ASHA's peer-reviewed indexed professional journal, which is available in both print and online. Members can also receive continuing education credits, and this includes JOSH self-studies, attending webinars such as this, and the annual conference. Members can also receive discounts on select AAP publications, as well as a discount to the Sex Ed Network and job postings on the Career Center. Members can also tap into information and expertise, and this includes access to the latest information in school health through the annual conference, as well as bi-weekly newsletters. I would now like to introduce today's presenters. Dr. Melinda Ickes is an associate professor in the Department of Kinesiology and Health Promotion at the University of Kentucky, where she is the program chair of graduate studies in health promotion. Dr. Ickes is currently the co-chair of University of Kentucky's Tobacco-Free Campus Committee. Dr. Ickes is also a faculty associate of the Bridging Research Efforts and Advocacy Toward Healthy Environments, also known as BREATHE research team, serving as co-director of the Tobacco Policy Research Program and director of Go Tobacco Free. Sierra Miley is a recent graduate from the University of Kentucky with a degree in kinesiology. She currently serves as the program coordinator of #ICanEndTheTrend, an evidence-based program focused on tobacco and e-cigarette prevention, while also aiming to empower youth to make a difference. And Dylan Lay is a first-year graduate student in the College of Education with a major in health promotion at the University of Kentucky. Dylan is also a research assistant for the peer-led e-cigarette prevention and empowerment program, #ICanEndTheTrend. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our presenters for today.
Thank you so much. We are thrilled to be here today to talk to you all a little bit about e-cigarette prevention and information on our program, #ICanEndTheTrend. And one of my favorite parts about this presentation is I get to share it with Sierra and Dylan, who are really the ones that are on the ground every day and working on this issue and can probably speak to what's truly happening in the schools, as many of you know. So as we get started, we talk about e-cigarettes and why it's a concern for us to really pay attention to. Next slide, please, Dylan. Thank you. So through the success we've had with education, the availability of different tobacco products, including tobacco treatment, and then policy changes, we've actually seen some success. We've seen commercial tobacco use decrease in popularity, and that's including among youth and adults. And we're so proud of this, but unfortunately, those same luring tactics that the tobacco companies have been using for years are back, and they're being repeated related to e-cigarettes, especially among our youth. And so this has really contributed to the surge in e-cig use among our youth and as well as emerging adults. So according to the CDC, we know that in 2020, which is the most recent data we have available, about 1 in 5 high school students reported current or past 30-day use of e-cigarettes. And this is more than 3.5 million young people using these products, which are certainly putting our youth at risk for both short and long-term health and life consequences. Unfortunately, in Kentucky, we tend to lead the way when it comes to tobacco-related consequences. We also have some of the highest rates of youth and adult combustible smoking cigarettes, as well as some of those consequences like lung cancer. We also know that we have equally concerning rates of e-cigarette use among our youth, with about 26% of Kentucky high school students reporting current use. So we really need to think about what can we do to change this trend. Excuse me, the landscape of e-cigarettes, including the type of device and popular brands, is ever changing. So I get Google alerts on e-cigarettes and vaping, and you can imagine how many Google alerts I get every single day. There's always a new product popping up. There's always some new hot topic, obviously emerging research. But when we first saw a spike in youth e-cigarette use a few years ago, that was when e-cigarettes were really rebranded to appeal to youth with sleek designs, flavors, and then they also had a stronger nicotine concentration. At that time, pod-based devices like Juul tended to be the most popular product. And I think at that time, we had about 70 to 80% of the market share of youth using Juul specifically. So in 2020, when it seemed like the FDA took a big step to reduce flavors in some of these pod-based products like Juul, there was also a big loophole that has allowed other flavored products to remain on the market. And since then, disposable e-cigarettes like Puff Bar, Mr. Fogg, to name a few, they've increased in popularity among youth. They're trendy and they're still available in all of those lovely flavors. So in fact, there was 1,000% increase, 1,000%. Every time I say that, I'm still amazed. But 1,000% increase in use of disposables from 2019 to 2020 among high school students across the nation. Unfortunately, we also know that among current high school e-cigarette users, 39% report using on 20 or more of the past 30 days. And so it's really not just them trying these products every once in a while, it's reinforcing the likelihood of dependence. We know that youth are uniquely at risk when exposed to nicotine at such an early age, and they're also targeted by companies to initiate use. So in 2019, our peer-led #ICanEndTheTrend program was developed in collaboration with some amazing college students, 2 of them happen to be here today, to tackle this issue in a way that connects with youth and young people on their level and in ways that are meaningful to them. So the primary goal of our program is to provide evidence-informed tobacco use prevention to youth, families, and community members across Kentucky. I Can End the Trend helps build awareness on the dangers of tobacco use, including e-cigarette use, the costs associated with nicotine dependence, and ways that youth have been targeted and influenced to use these products. Most importantly, we strive to empower the younger generations to end the trend of e-cigarette use among their peers as well as in their communities. We use developmentally appropriate and skill-based engaged lessons that are led by college students. We also integrate opportunities to get involved and really be change makers beyond our school-based lessons. Since February of 2019, our team of college students has reached over 6,500 students across 20 counties in Kentucky. We're so proud of that. We take pride in being able to have a conversation with not only youth directly, but others like you who are working with youth. So what makes our program unique? I could go on and on. I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think the cornerstone of our program is using a tailored peer-to-peer approach to encourage engagement, skill building, and support around this issue. From our own research, as well as emerging research across other states, we know that things like social influences, including friend substance use, and low school connectedness are predictors of e-cigarette use among youth. The youth perspective is really critical to tobacco prevention and control because most people do start before they're 18 years old. The tobacco industry also continues to use advertising strategies that appeal to youth to recruit the next generation of tobacco users. They're really smart. Youth involvement can lead to important environmental and social norm changes and actually help reduce pro-tobacco influences, all of those things which can lead to decreased initiation and sustained change across communities, which is what we want. So we have a team of college facilitators who help develop and update all of our content, our activities, and they're the ones that go out into schools and communities to deliver our presentations. They've truly made this program their own, and I couldn't be more proud. Sometimes what we as adults think will be best or what students need to hear, it's not really something that hooks them or engages them. So our team thinks outside of the box to present the content in ways that really resonate with youth and inspire them to want to make a difference. We want the presentation to feel like a conversation where youth have a place to be open, actively learn, and brainstorm ways they can be involved in solutions to tackle the issue. We know that our college students connect with elementary, middle, and high school students. And it's a really interesting phenomenon too in Kentucky. You know, a lot of people look up to UK students as role models. UK is kind of like the celebrity thing in Kentucky. And so we're really proud of the fact that our college students want to be role models and take on that responsibility. In fact, our evaluation efforts reinforce that over 90% of students that we've already reached enjoy having college students present the information. And on the screen here, you can see that we've also developed some characters to represent the diverse nature of students in our schools. E-cigarette use does not discriminate. We're talking to the band member, the high school athlete, the students from rural communities, those on the debate team, and those still trying to find their place. We really want to help them recognize that they're not alone and that we can help come together to end this trend. We know that students want to help, they want to learn, and they want to quit if they are using, and they want to get involved. So we continue to build in additional opportunities for them to get involved, which we'll share a little bit more about later. So in developing our program, we really wanted to make sure to align with best practices for tobacco prevention. At the time we developed our program, there were no existing e-cigarette prevention programs. Now we have a few more national programs that have come about, which is really great to see. We also align our program with the national and state health education standards. We have either a tailored 1 lesson or 3 lesson session for our school-based programming for late elementary, middle, or high school students. And here you can see just an example of how we align our content with the standards for high school. We're able to delve a bit deeper when we have 3 lesson session opportunities, so we always recommend that option to schools. Beyond that, it gives them more time to connect with our college facilitators, which they tend to enjoy as well. Okay, so to get a true sense of our approach, let's take a peek into what one of our lessons for high school looks like. I'd love to turn it over to Dylan Lay, one of the college students who previously helped develop this program back in 2019. He also served as a college facilitator for 1 year, and he's currently a research assistant with our team that helps with all things evaluation, but really he does everything as part of our team. So he's going to give you a snapshot of one of our lessons so you can really see our approach in action. Dylan?
All right, so just to kind of give you all heads up, so I'm going to kind of go into a school presentation mode right now where, you know, the audience is going to be either elementary, middle, or high school students. And I think I'm going to have a few questions. So I think primarily Sierra is going to be answering those out loud, but also feel free to type in the chat to really get that virtual participation going as well whenever I ask a question. So with that being said, we will go ahead and get into that. All right, so what's up everyone? So my name is Dylan Lay and I attend the University of Kentucky. So I'm a student just like you all. And today I'm excited to have a conversation with you as your peer about e-cigarettes and what we can do to end this trend. So I'm going to ask questions throughout the presentation. So I just ask that you're open and honest when you are answering these questions. So we want to talk about what you already know, what you might not know yet in regards to e-cigarettes, and what you can do to reverse this trend. So we will go ahead and get rolling with that. So to begin our conversation, I want to first ask you all, what is a trend?
Something that is popular or used by many.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's spot on. So a trend is something that's popular for a period of time. So, you know, with that being said, what are some examples of some trends that have come and gone over the past couple of years that you all might be familiar with?
Yeah, so a couple people said a trend specifically is something that's cool. Trends, they also don't last a long time. But specifically, some trends that I can think of are silly bands, blue hair, Uggs was in the chat. I know, you know, the cinnamon challenge was really big, Dylan, when we were in high school.
Yeah, no, those are great answers. So, you know, like Sarah said, silly bands, things like chokers, scrunchies, Crocs, TikToks, fidget spinners, those are all trends, right? So why do you think these things became so popular in the first place?
Well, the silly bands were kind of cool and, you know, all my friends did it. So why not? In the chat, we have everybody had them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. So, you know, a lot of times these things become popular because it's cool, or people want to fit in, or people are curious about it, or, you know, they say everyone's doing it. All my friends are doing it, right? So, you know, all of these reasons are, you know, why people pick these trends up. So, you know, do you think that any of these reasons for participating in those other trends that we just talked about overlap with the reasons that people our age use e-cigarettes?
Yeah, I mean, my friends were doing it and they asked, so I thought, you know, why not? In the chat, we have to fit in.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. So, you know, like you all said, it's to fit in. You know, maybe because someone's bored, maybe they're curious, maybe a friend offers an e-cigarette to you. You know, when we put it all into perspective, what's the big difference here between these trends and recent trends of e-cigarette use?
I'm going to let them answer in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Addiction,
Yeah.
harmful to your health and addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's spot on. So, you know, we know that silly bands and TikToks, they don't typically lead to disease and health concerns like cigarettes and e-cigarettes do. So, you know, while it may seem like most people are using these products, this actually isn't the case at all. We know that 20% of high school students are using these products, but that means that 80% are actually not using. So the vast majority of young people aren't using e-cigarettes. So that's important to keep in mind as we go through the presentation today. All right, so I'm going to share a poll question with you all. So I'll go ahead and launch it. So what's the number one reason that you choose not to use e-cigarettes? So answer options are health consequences, chemicals, financial burden, environmental impact, another new one, COVID-19. All right, so a lot of people, about 90% of people are saying health consequences. Yeah, a lot are saying chemicals, few are saying environmental impact. All right, yeah, so yeah, all right, great job, everyone. Thank you for sharing. So we will go ahead and exit that out. All right, so, you know, I first want to ask you before we go ahead and get into other parts of the presentation, why do you think people your age are using? And I know we kind of went into that a little bit, but what are some other reasons other than boredom or curiosity?
So I'm going to let them answer in the chat and then I'll read them to you.
Absolutely.
Stressed out.
Stress, yeah.
Yeah, I want to be liked, so like fit in. They're vaping THC.
Okay. Yeah. And listen, those are all perfect reasons and real reasons why young people use. But, you know, like I said, we know that youth initiate use for several reasons, those that you all mentioned as well, including friends, stressors, flavors, and a huge factor. The reason why young people do initiate use is manipulative advertising that's targeting vulnerable groups that include young people. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll. Let's see if I can. All right, so how much do you think e-cigarette companies spend on advertising per year? Give you all a few seconds to answer that.
And then Dylan, I don't mind to share the results after.
Okay, cool.
Just so they can get a visual.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. And then let's see. All right, so we're sharing. So most of you, looks like you think we're spending about 5 million on advertising per year, and that's a great guess. So, you know, we know that e-cigarette companies spend a lot of money on advertising their products to reach younger generations, and this has increased a lot over the past few years. But in 2018, e-cigarette companies spent $110 million on advertising these products. So that is a ton of money. That is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of $1 million that they're spending. And in 2016, about 7 in 10 middle school and high school students, which is about, of course, 70%, more than 18 million young people said they had seen an e-cigarette advertisement before. And although the use of conventional cigarettes has gone down among youth, these companies are always trying to lure us in with their products. So I want to ask you about these advertisements you see here on the screen. What are some things that just you notice right off of the bat about these advertisements?
The colors, fun, bright colors, models. They look cool and they appeal to youth.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are spot on, perfect answers, right? They're colorful. They have young people in them. They're appealing to youth. These again, lighthearted messages as well. So if you look closely, you can even see an example of a brand promoting their devices in the middle of a respiratory pandemic. You got the guy here with some masks, like, hey, offering free mask with the e-cigarette. And in the middle, this example, it's a Mr. Fogg. So this is a new type of disposable. This looks like a music festival lineup, right? So it's appealing to youth. It's colorful. It looks fun. And another thing I want to ask you all, do you notice any kind of warning label on any of these advertisements?
No.
Oh, yeah. And even if there is one on there, that's because it's so small and you really can't notice it with everything else going on. And that is not by accident whatsoever. So, e-cigarette companies market in different ways, like through social media, websites, at sporting events, big signs and banners at gas stations, and they even offer scholarships to people our age. All right. So, we know that social media is becoming more and more relevant, especially with people our age and people younger than us as well. So it makes a lot of sense for these companies to also brand through social media. So I'm going to ask you all a poll question again. Let's see if I can get it back up here. All right. So what social media site do you use most often? All right. Give you a few seconds to get this going. All right, so I will go ahead and end that. All right, so about half of the audience today uses Facebook. So, what's really interesting when we present to, younger students, we get a lot of TikTok and Snapchat, especially, in elementary and middle school. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and go back into presentation mode. With that, so has anyone heard the term influencer or know what it means to be an influencer, specifically on social media?
Yeah, I follow an influencer that promotes healthy habits and working out.
All right, yeah. So that's a good example of a social media influencer.
Someone
So
has a lot of followers online, was said in the chat.
yeah, absolutely. So, we know that an influencer, especially social media, has grown. People are making careers off of social media. And these people, like you all said, are known as influencers. So, tobacco companies have actually paid influencers who are popular among young people to promote their products on social media sites like Instagram. And e-cigarette companies have paid influencers who promote e-cigarettes up to $3,500 per month. That's $42,000 a year. And often, they instruct these influencers not to use hashtags like hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored or the name of the brand to avoid being caught for influencing young people. So the tobacco industry is taking advantage of the fact that you look up to these influencers. They're relying on you to make e-cigarettes look cool and fun. And unfortunately, it's working. According to a peer-reviewed journal called Addictive Behaviors, using Snapchat more frequently is associated with higher rates of vaping. Why do you think that is? Why is Snapchat more associated with higher rates of vaping?
I see advertisements on Snapchat.
Yeah, so you see advertisements, and also on Snapchat, you see other people doing things, you see your friends doing things that you might enjoy too. So, the more you see an advertisement or the more you see your friends doing something, the more normal it might seem to you. So if you look here on the screen to the left, this tweet is promoting and normalizing the use of e-cigarettes, which creates temptation while also making a joke about nicotine dependence. So social media allows for the industry to have widespread advertising at almost no cost at all. And by sharing these funny antics and videos, young people have essentially done the advertising for them and not only normalize vaping, but also the nicotine dependence that comes with it. And unfortunately, you know, as times change and other platforms like TikTok become more popular with our crowd, so do the influencers and their promotional videos of e-cigarettes. So I want to show you all an example of this TikTok that's kind of normalizing nicotine dependence.
This is my mom's beloved crosswall. Some of them are down, but I also have 56 pump bars. All of them used, of course, because I'm not crazy. So I did what any sane and rational person would do, and I created my own cross. This is also about like 2 times the size of that other guy's cross that's on your For You page. And I decided I was gonna, you know, obviously I had to beat him because I am the true vid god. So there's 56, so in total this costs about $560, so that's crazy. I took down my mom's favorite cross and put mine up. So yeah, I think it looks really great up there. May the power of Christ compel you to be a better vape god than me.
All right, so that's pretty bizarre TikTok. And you know, if you notice, that TikTok has 1 million likes. So that is a very, very, very viral TikTok. So what are your thoughts on that video? What do you all think of that?
I'm getting some OMGs in the chat.
Yeah, big OMGs going along with that video. Yeah, I mean, that's how we feel as well. So, you know, now that you've seen some examples of manipulated advertising and influencers promoting these products, let's find some more on our own. All right, so I'm going to hop out of, oops. All right, so I'm going to hop out of presentation mode for a second and just kind of explain this next part to you all. So during this part of the presentation, we like to ask our students to take about 5 minutes to search for examples of manipulative e-cigarette advertisements on their, on their own social media. So we call this our virtual scavenger hunt, and we ask them to search their own social media sites on the internet. And when we ask them to do this, we want them to search for some of the things that you all see on this checklist. So, what platform or what social media site was this advertisement on? Does it feature a disposable or e-cigarette? Does it have bright colors, flavors, young, attractive looking people? Can you find any warning labels on the advertisement? So basically just kind of some of the things that we talked about earlier when we noticed those manipulative advertisements. So this is a pretty good way to engage young people virtually and have them learn more about manipulative advertisement in real life on their own social media. All right, so I'm going to go back into presentation mode now. Oh my goodness, keep going to TikTok. Let's not do that again. Okay, all right, so we can post reasons why we're not using e-cigarettes or why we want our friends to quit or even connect them with quitting resources. So you don't have to have a whole lesson on the history of e-cigarettes to influence your peers. You can be funny and still be informative. So here are a few examples of young people who are not condoning e-cigarettes and trying to be a positive influencer. So we have a tweet here, and we have a few TikToks that we actually posted on our TikTok account. So I will show you all this one really quick.
Because it's disrespectful to you. It is disrespectful to for one woman. Red. To you. It is disrespectful to you. It is, first of all, it's disrespectful in general to you. Because.
All right, so that was just another short TikTok, completely opposite from the one that we just watched a minute ago of how you can be a positive influencer. All right, so I'm going to ask one more poll question. And if I can get it up. All right. So what can you do to be a positive influencer? Post on social media, support and encourage a friend, share quitting resources, or all of the above? All right, yeah. All right, so I'll go ahead and end that one. Just see if you want to share those. Let's see. Yeah, so all the above, right? We can post on social media, support everyone. We can even connect others with quitting resources as well. So those are all ways that we can be a positive influencer. All right. I need to fix that. Okay, so, that was a mini version of our general approach when working with youth. So we've learned a lot since 2019, and we're always updating our approach as we learn the best ways to engage youth. So one way we do this is by, collecting data directly from students through 3 anonymous surveys. So our first survey is our baseline survey. So this is distributed prior to each presentation, and it provides us with students' school connectedness, tobacco use, perception of peer e-cigarette usage, perception toward e-cigarettes, and self-efficacy to address this issue in their school. Our next survey is our post survey. So this is distributed 4 weeks after the last presentation date. And we ask the same questions in the baseline survey to support our impact evaluation. So our third presentation is our feedback and process evaluation survey. So this is distributed at the end of the presentation, immediately following the presentation. So the goal here is to gather feedback to improve our presentations and help support facilitators in areas of growth. So after all 3 surveys are completed, we like to share a summary of all this data with the participating schools so they can kind of get a feel. And you all can see here on the screen an example of what our summary report looks like. It's there on the right. So we share some key highlights. And I want to share some of those key highlights with you all too from this past year. So keep in mind, we were completely virtual. We've only given 1 in-person presentation. That was at the end of the year, which was great. But most of these results are from our virtual presentations. So 91% of students strongly agreed that they overall enjoyed the virtual format of the program. Almost 90% of students strongly agreed that they learned something new about e-cigarettes. 93% of students strongly agreed that they enjoyed having college students as their facilitators. And almost 92% of students strongly agreed that they enjoyed the program overall. So we've usually used this data to improve our approach, to addressing youth and really to kind of get a good feel on how we can change our program and adapt our program to fit what our students want. All right, so like I said, keeping youth engaged virtually. We spent a lot of time during quarantine and COVID, and due to COVID, a lot of our strategies had to adapt to fit the needs of reaching our students virtually. But overall, our goal of students staying engaged with hands-on skills and skill-based activities didn't change. So from our feedback survey, 89% of students who participated in our virtual program thought the Kahoot was helpful in keeping them engaged. And the majority of the qualitative data shows that students love the Kahoots, interactive games like Kahoot, and other activities throughout, including the scavenger hunts that we talked about, the PSA development. We have a hairspray activity where we show the difference between aerosol and water vapor with hairspray and a water bottle, which is really fun, really cool to do. We've also found that breaks throughout presentations or icebreakers every hour or so allow students to stay engaged virtually, especially during our long presentations and our long trainings. And along with having poll questions as well to make sure that they're really connecting with the speaker and kind of continuing to engage and participate during the presentation. So, and another thing is, one of my first presentations, a student, and this was a story from mine and Sierra's very first presentation, back in, I guess, 2019, 2020, who knows anymore, a long time ago. We kept saying throughout our presentation, we kept saying Juul, 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 Juul this, Juul that, instead of e-cigarette. And at the end of the presentation, a student raised their hand and they're like, listen, nobody uses Juul anymore. Nobody uses a Juul here. And me and Sierra were like, oh man, we need to take another look at this. So, that's another thing that we have really had to adapt to as well. So along with this, we've learned that including, short-term health consequences and scenarios that make sense in their world has also been very beneficial in keeping students engaged. So we usually share this content through an interactive format like Kahoot, like I was discussing earlier. And sometimes, presenting long-term consequences, young people feel invincible, or they have a hard time understanding the issue and understanding how, kind of how it relates to them. So for example, when young people hear long-term effects like nicotine addiction, mood disorders, permanent lowering of impulse control, kind of tends to go right over their heads. So we found that it's more effective for young people to hear about short-term impacts that can impact them on a day-to-day basis, presented through this Kahoot that we give them. So for example, we give students a scenario like John is having trouble breathing while playing basketball and John develops a cough. So we ask, what is John experiencing? And, obviously this answer is going to be decreased lung function. So these are just some of the ways that we've been keeping youth engaged through a virtual format. And I can now turn it over to Sierra so she can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in addition to, the Kahoot and then putting it into perspective of their everyday world, we also really focus on skill building activities to keep youth engaged. And so each presentation does vary depending on age to keep that language relevant. And then we also, align our activities through those health education standards that we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And so although content is similar among all 3 grades, language and activities differ when talking to 4th and 5th graders compared to high schoolers. So for example, we know that elementary students focusing on decision-making skills is key for this age group. So we focus on refusal skills as an activity. For high schoolers, we go through an activity teaching students what is a credible source. So what is the goal of that source? Is it subjective? Is it an objective piece? That way students can leave our presentations with skills to make their own informed decisions. And so along with this, we include the social media scavenger hunt, not only for an enjoyment and engagement, but a way to have those skills outside of our presentation. That way they can see, what this manipulation looks like on their own. In addition to this, we include videos and testimonials. And so unfortunately, the issue of dependence is very real among young people. And so we know through our surveys that students want to know that they're not alone in this journey. And so testimonials are a good way to connect, but also show that youth are not invincible as young people. And so when we talk to youth about addiction and dependence, it's really important for us to be empathetic because whether you know it or not, there could be someone in our classroom that's struggling just to make it a few hours, because they are dependent on that vape. And so it's really important for us to create this open and safe environment for this conversation to be had. We're not there to judge or punish. And so we want to share a video with you from a student just from Kentucky, and his name is Lane, and he, graciously volunteered to share his story to, again, to remind youth that are dependent that they're not alone in this journey. Dylan, you may need to unmute yourself.
Dylan, this is Caitlin. I am having a hard time hearing the video. What would help is if you stop sharing your screen, and when you go to share your screen, there's an option to share computer audio, and that will put the audio directly through Zoom.
Okay, let's see.
Do you see that checkbox when you go to click share screen? It's towards the bottom.
Yeah, is that under advanced sharing options?
It should just be in the basic one. Are you on a Mac or?
I'm on a PC.
Okay, so when you go to click share, it's at the very bottom of that share screen, and it's a little checkbox that says share sound.
Let's see.
We can also share that video, Dylan, in the chat because it's on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go ahead and pull that back up, Dylan, I'll just kind of briefly go over that, and then we'll provide that link in the chat.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone.
No worries. Yeah, so he basically just talks about, his struggle through dependence. And as you can see, that was just a short section of the video. So we'll provide that link for you guys to check out that story from Landon. So in addition to, videos and testimonials, it's really important to connect to their everyday world. And so all of our lives have been impacted by COVID-19. And so we have, again, shifted completely virtual this past year. And so we also know as research emerges, we are now seeing ties of tobacco products like e-cigarettes and diseases like COVID-19. And so the use of e-cigarettes may actually increase the risk of susceptibility and severity of symptoms of infectious diseases like COVID. So for example, a study by Stanford School of Medicine, me, shows that young people who use e-cigarettes are nearly 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with COVID. And so students really like hearing about this new science because, again, it's what's going on in their everyday world. So it makes sense for us to talk about that. We also know that tobacco prevention is important in regards to social justice and environmental issues. And so according to our feedback surveys, Dylan, if you'll go to the next slide, out of chemicals, health effects, nicotine dependence, secondhand aerosol exposure, and environmental factors, as you can see on the screen for elementary, chemicals were the #1 reason students choose not to use. For middle school and high school, health effects were that #1 reason. And interestingly, environmental impact was the second highest reason among middle and high schoolers for that reason that they chose not to use. And, while we might be drawn to the response of the highest percentage, we're also reminded that there is more than just one approach to connect youth across different topics with different ages. And so we can maximize this opportunity by including all of these points in our presentations and discussions, which we do. And so we've also realized the importance of reaching them outside of the classroom. And so we've really ramped out our social media efforts to tackle these topics as well. And so given the high use of social media with this population specifically, we definitely prioritize our social media efforts in order to create communication campaigns with our students. And so since COVID-19 began, we've really taken this as an opportunity to make our social media a priority by reaching students, teachers, and community members across 5 different platforms. So you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And so as you can see on the slide, our social media has really picked up since school began in the fall. And so we're, really focusing on increasing our engagement and interaction. And we also encourage our students to use social media to their advantage, again, to be that positive influencer and an advocate. And so the data that we have collected in the participation and presentations, as well as this social media engagement, it really shows that youth want to get involved and they want to make a difference. And so our program really emphasizes the importance of youth not only learning this information, but doing something about it. And so many students ask us, okay, what now? That's honestly what really drives us. And so we ask them to stay educated, stay up to date on these resources, and reinforce the importance of seeking out, again, credible resources where they can access accurate information, supporting families and friends who want to quit, and then being their own positive influencer and being conscious of things that they're sharing on their own social media. And then we want to empower them beyond just being an influencer. We want to focus on being an advocate as well. And so some of the things that they have brainstormed ways that they can be an advocate is start a project in their school or community, create a school club centered around that anti-tobacco or e-cigarette information, writing letters to friends, families, policymakers, even your teacher or your principal, and then creating your own social media messages and then getting involved in our program. And so while our school-based programming is showing positive results, we know that truly in this trend, we need to create an environment that supports change and encourages youth voice to help make these changes. And so feedback we have received from our programming really spurs our new initiatives. But before we talk about our new initiatives, I briefly want to talk about what you can do. So support a tobacco-free policy. So if you already have a tobacco-free policy at your school, continue supporting these efforts by involving not only staff, but parents, families to help create that supportive environment, and then also involve your students. Also check out that language and make sure you are communicating that e-cigarettes are included in that policy. So sometimes people aren't aware that vaping products are considered tobacco products. Be a good role model. So many students look up to adults as influencers and leaders. And so, practice what you preach and really be that positive influencer for that student. And then have a conversation. So be understanding and empathetic, know the resources and ways that you can connect users or those who may know users. And then education. So providing your staff with professional development trainings, which we do offer free of cost. So if you're interested in that, I'll provide more information at the end. And then for those quitting resources specifically, Dylan, we don't have to show the video. We can provide this in a follow-up, but we know that some people in our presentations are already using. So we share youth-friendly quitting resources to give them that opportunity to practice sharing with what they've learned. And so we've also shown that schools are able to provide quitting resources rather than that punishment. And so on the screen, you'll see, for example, one of really great youth-friendly quitting resources is This Is Quitting or My Life, My Quit. And for This Is Quitting specifically, 2 weeks within the launch of that application, 61% reduced or quit completely. And so they are showing positive results. The final resource that I want to share with you is called Indepth. And so Indepth is an alternative to suspension or citation program. And this is offered as an option to youth who face that suspension or consequences for a violation of that tobacco-free policy. And so it's a really great way to introduce resources to youth and again, allow them to have the conversation and allow their voices to be heard. And so these are just a few great resources that are completely free and easy to access as an educator. And so along with these resources, you can also use our program, #ICanInTheTrend. And so we're really focusing on, increasing our engagement throughout the community. So one of these ways that we are increasing our engagement specifically with youth is our Youth Advisory Board. And so we just launched this and we just selected 11 different youth representing 9 different counties across the state from a competitive pool of applicants. And so they will not only work collaboratively, with our team to support the development of our presentation and materials, but we also want to, have them have that peer perspective because that is at the forefront of what we do. And then we also want to provide them with opportunities, roles, and experiences in relation to advocacy, public speaking, media advocacy, and then working on projects that allows for engagement in their community. Our second big initiative is called Peers. And so this is an opportunity to get college students across the state of Kentucky involved with our initiatives. And so Peers stands for Prevention, Education, Empowerment, and Resources for Students. And so Peers is designed to train college students in a variety of topics related to tobacco and e-cigarette use prevention through interactive online modules, and then followed up with a direct live training with our team. And so once they complete this training, our Peers facilitators, they are able to present in any region or community that request a presentation. And so we have already trained over 40 peers partnering with community and technical colleges and then existing programs. And so we're recruiting for our fall cohort. So if you know any college students that are interested, please let us know. And then last but not least, on the horizon, we have a lot of amazing things in store. And so we do also conduct advocacy trainings beyond, in-school presentations, media message development, and social media outreach, including a recently developed research-driven comic book as part of our school research. And then again, we do professional development trainings for teachers, administrators, and community educators. And then in the fall, we will kick off our high school chapters. And then we also are going to focus on champion communities. So if you're interested in all of the above, please reach out to us because we would love nothing more than to work with you on these efforts. And so here is our contact information, and then we'll leave that on the screen. We have a newsletter listserv. There is our social media, our website. And then if you're interested in any of these initiatives or just have questions beyond today, please email us. And there's our email on the screen. Thank you guys so much again for having us. It's always a joy to be able to, share what we've learned and then also have people, this is really a team effort. So thank you again for listening. And then if you have any questions, please let us know.
Great. It looks like there's a question about the Peers program, if it's only for Kentucky students and if the training's virtual. So right now we have a contract with the state of Kentucky. And so our prevention programming and our Peers programming is focused on Kentucky. However, we are open to possible collaborations and contracts. So feel free to reach out to us. And we do have online training modules for that Peers program. And we've been doing in-person virtual sessions for our other trainings, but we'll be flexible on that this year. Let's see. Other questions? Do we have a grant that helps support our efforts? Yes, so we do have a contract with the state, as I mentioned, and that's why our program is kind of limited to Kentucky right now. However, we would love to expand into other states. And so I am always looking for funding opportunities and collaborations. And so please feel free to reach out to me if you have ideas on that. The commitment for the students on the Youth Advisory Board. Sierra, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of our main focuses for this youth advisory board is to really have a long-term sustainable effort. So beyond being in that classroom 1 or 3 times, we thought what can we do to have that long-term commitment? And so the youth advisory board, it is a 1-year commitment for all youth, and so each year we'll launch a new application process. So that just started, and so that will last as of now, May to May. But if you sign up for that listserv, you can get more information on our next cohort for that youth advisory board.
I know earlier one of the questions was how long are the presentations? And so we have a 1 or 3 lesson session, which are about 45 to 50 minutes each, but we have tailored longer presentation for schools that want more information. We also tend to have longer trainings when we're doing youth advocacy work. Sierra, do you mind putting the link to the YouTube channel for Landon's video?
Yes, I will do that now. And then our YouTube channel also has a cool little 2-minute PSA type of video. So if you want to check out all those videos on our channel, I'll just go ahead and share the general link, and then you can access Landon's video that way.
So there's a question about if students receive a stipend. So for the youth advisory board, right now we do not have that built in, but we are hoping to build that in the future. For our college facilitators, so our college I Can End the Trend team, those are paid positions. And we also offer internships that we currently have one facilitator who's working on internship hours as an undergraduate student. And Sierra, do you mind putting the link to the social media accounts? Thank you. You all have to check out the social media, and I can't take any credit for it. I review ideas and some content, but I think that's another really, reason why we have reached young people is our college students create all of that content. Kind of a funny story on the TikTok. They were pushing me for a while to get TikTok and I just didn't get it, which is probably why most of the people on this webinar today did not select TikTok as one of their social media accounts. But that's where we've had such success reaching youth and young people. And most of the time they're pretty off the wall and I still don't get it. But if it's working and it's getting the message out there, that's all that matters. And so Sierra's put in the link to all of our social media accounts. You can also just find us at I Can End the Trend for all of those. And if you find one, you'll be able to find our others. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all so much. We really appreciate your time and all of your efforts in the schools and beyond.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ickes, Dylan, and Sierra for that wonderful presentation. So by attending this webinar, you are eligible for one continuing education hour. For those of you looking to receive continuing education for attending this webinar, you must complete the webinar evaluation. The link to the evaluation will be placed in the chat box at the end of the webinar, as well as included in a follow-up email. And also as a reminder, the 2021 ASHA Conference will be held virtually on July 19th through July 21st. The conference is designed to provide support for school health professionals as they prepare for the 2021-2022 school year. It will focus on an exploration of the impacts of COVID-19 on student and staff health, as well as well-being and how we can work together to ensure student success. There will be high quality professional development, dynamic speakers, and cutting edge research. And there will be opportunities to listen to keynote speakers and panel discussions, as well as attend various sessions, including the poster session, and of course, opportunities to connect and network. And this concludes today's webinar. If you are interested to learn more about ASHA or have any questions, please visit www.ashaweb.org or email us at info@ashaweb.org. Thank you.